A few days ago, I got an electric shock. It completely disrupted my original plan for this episode because I don't want to appear on camera with these scars. But then I realized if I was going to get shocked anyway, why not let this accident become the beginning of today's story? So while I recover, let's explore the Chinese character for electricity, 电. For ancient people, this was probably the most familiar form of electricity. Dark clouds gathered overhead, filling people with fear, aware, and reverence. Now imagine you were never studied physics and you know nothing about electricity. Looking at sky like this, how would you describe it? What kind of Chinese character would you create to captive this phenomenon? More than 3,000 years have passed, yet we still haven't fully understood this symbol. When you first see it, don't you think, isn't that a bolt of lightning? But the story isn't that simple. Even today, scholars still hold different view about this symbol. Some scholars interpret it as the character for electricity, while another identify it as an early form of another character, Shen. Some scholars also suggest that in the earliest stage of Chinese writing, these two forms may not yet have been fully distinguished. In the Eastern Han Dynasty, the scholar Shen wrote in 说文解字, 电阴阳基要也, 从语从身. Electricity is a brilliant interaction of yin and yang. It formed from yu and shen. However, 说文解字 was compiled during the Eastern Han Dynasty, more than 1,000 years after the oracle bone inscriptions were created. It reflects how scholars of the Eastern Han understood those much older characters, rather than the original explanation left by the people who created them over 3,000 years ago. So while it provides us with invaluable clues for research, it may not necessarily preserve the original meaning intended when this symbol was first created. Even if new evidence is discovered in the future, we may never be able to know with complete certainty what people were thinking more than 3,000 years ago. But what fascinates me even more than the answer is another question. We have always tried to understand the world through language, to give names to what we see and organize our experiences into something we can share. Perhaps this symbol wasn't meant to record one specific thing. Perhaps it captured a shared human experience. Faced with the same phenomenon, different people can understand it differently and leave behind different ways of expressing it. If you have different perspective, I'd love to hear in the comments. Fortunately, by the time we reached the bronze inscriptions, the character for electricity, 电, has become much clearer. As a graphic designer, I absolutely love this character. It feels like a timeless logo design. The only difference is the client was a force far beyond humanity. It almost looks as if that mysterious power is hidden within the clouds and rain. From that point on, the overall structure of the character changed very little for nearly 3,000 years. That remained until the instruction of Simplified Chinese. Some scholars regard that simplified form, 电, no longer preserves some of the ideas found in the original character. I completely understand how they feel, but the evolution of a civilization doesn't wait for our approval. The life of a character doesn't exist only in its written form. It also lives in us through the way people continue to use it, generation after generation. Even today, many words related to electricity still preserve the observation our ancestors made long ago. 闪电, the light produced by electricity. In other words, the light of lightning, also called 电光. 电光火石 compares something to the flash of lightning and the spark from striking flint, describing a moment that is incredibly fast and disappears in an instant. However, in all of these expressions, 电 refers to the lightning in the sky, not to electric current in the modern sense. Ancient Chinese distinguished thunder from lightning. Simply put, one was the sound and another was the light. 雷电 combines the two, thunder and lightning. 电灯 oil lamps once burned the fuel to produce light. Today, they have largely been replaced by lamps powered by electricity. That is why they are called 电灯, 电报. Messages that were once carried on foot, by horseback or by boat, could now be transmitted using electricity. They become 电报. Moving images projected onto a large screen become 电影. 电视, a machine that lets you watch images at home through electricity and broadcast signals, become 电视, 电冰箱. A box that uses electricity to keep food cool for long-term storage, become 电冰箱. Later, electricity no longer had to come directly from a wire. It could be stored in a container called 电池. A machine that performs calculations using electricity become our electronic computer. In Chinese, it also commonly called 电脑, literally our electric brain. But in Chinese, 电 has another fascinating use. It can describe not only a thing, but also an action. For example, we say 我被电到了. Here, 电 is being used as a verb. We don't say 我被电到了. I was electricity electrocuted. Even though everyone understand that first electricity would be the thing, and the second would be the action. One single word is enough. So when I say 我被电到了, I got shocked. You can probably imagine the painful expression on my face. But 我被电到了, I got shocked, can also mean something completely different. For example, when I first saw my wife, 我被她电到了. I was completely shocked. Of course, I don't mean she plugged me into the power grid. It means that the moment I saw her, it felt as if an electric shock had gone straight through my heart. In Chinese, 电 is borrowed to describe that sudden, powerful feeling. The feeling of being struck, just like an electric shock. 我被她电到了. She totally captivated me. So whether you are shocked by electricity or shocked by someone you fall in love with, either one might change your life. As for me, I've been shocked twice. Fortunately, I am still here today. But I don't recommend learning Chinese the way I did, by getting shocked firsthand. tradition. Simplify. What does this mean?